Welcome back, and this is a post-fight review for the Devin Haney versus George Kambosos Jr. rematch fight, which took place early hours this morning in the UK. So as always, before continue, please subscribe, like, and comment for more boxing-related content. So my initial post-fight thoughts, about this fight is that it was pretty much a carbon copy of the first fight except George Kambosos Jr. He turned up, in the eighth round onwards, and this is when he started to put a little bit of pressure. Do you know what I mean on Haney, and this was because he was inspired by a slight. Bit of blood which was trickling down Haney's face. Obviously, this was due to a cut, a clash of heads. But regardless, anyway, Kambosos, had two good rounds back to back after this. It just kind of spurred him on that a little bit more, really, which was quite good because up until that point, for me, the fight was, one way really. It was one way traffic. It was just brilliant boxing class from obviously Devin Haney. He was the more accomplished boxer in the ring. You could see that he was the younger fighter, the more hungry fighter, as well as the more inspired fighter in the ring. Compared to obviously Kambosos, he's very durable. He took some brilliant shots, in the fight, and he was still there up until the last, the last couple of seconds of the fight. But it was very much one dimension throughout the whole fight, and it was quite straightforward, really. For me personally, I'd probably say that Devin Haney was pretty much in second gear. You know what I mean? Obviously, round eight, round nine was a little bit harder, but it wasn't nothing that he couldn't handle really. But it was the first time that he had been cut himself. Do you know what I mean? So that was quite interesting to see how he obviously reacted as well to that cut, and I personally felt as if he dealt with it quite well. So George Kambosos, his performance was quite a little bit of a weird one, if you in a way because obviously during the earlier rounds he came out, and he started switching stances quite early. Do you know what I mean? But he was switching stances at the wrong range because he was inside, Haney's range, which was quite easy for Haney to then pick him off, and catch him with the jabs and the overhand rights and stuff at times as well, which obviously he didn't really like that, Kambosos, because he was getting caught quite easy. Um, and he was also throwing less punches in between rounds as well compared to the first fight, and which is what I noticed as well. He wasn't throwing many, and it was quite interesting because in my mind, I was thinking, okay, you need to come out here. You lost the first fight. You need to prove something to the fans and to Haney. You know what I mean? You need to show a little bit more grit. Do you know what I mean? But realistically, for me, he because he was getting frustrated quite early in the first opening parts of the fight, he had to resort for some dirty tactics. Really, do you know what I mean? He started to punch Haney in the legs during clinching. He was also, trying to leave an elbow, against Haney's face when they were up close, and obviously rubbing his head against Haney's head as well, which again eventually opened up the cut in the eighth round, which the referee didn't really tell him off. He didn't really give him a warning, which was quite interesting to be fair. But Kambosos Jr., you know what I mean? He did have a couple of bouts of aggression, you know what I mean? But it just wasn't enough because he would do something fairly decent for, let's say, 10 to 15 seconds, and then he would just kind of go back to his slow, lethargic pace at times, and he didn't keep that pressure on Haney. Do you know what I mean? Which, for me, if he would have kept that pressure on Haney, Haney would have had a little bit more to think about, you know what I mean? And Haney probably would have had to maybe switched into a different gear at times. Because when Kambosos was throwing punches, when Haney was throwing punches, he was catching Haney. Do you know what I mean? And he had his best success at times when he was doing that, compared to where he was just throwing the single shots, which wasn't having much effect on Haney. But he did have a good end of of round seven. He had a good end to that round, which obviously led into round eight, and again round eight for Kambosos Jr. was a very good round. But apart from that, really, he was mainly in the fight coming forward, but with no reply to Haney's shots. And as I said earlier, it was quite one-dimensional and straightforward for Haney. So Devin Haney's performance, personally, I felt as if it was a very, very good professional performance, really. And he looked at ease from round 1 to round 12. And for me, as I said earlier, you know what I mean, it just felt as if he was in second gear at times. He worked his jab and his straight right, you know what I mean, very well. And he was, you know what I mean, he was also, you know what I mean, treating us to some checks, to some short check left hooks, do you know what I mean, which was catching Kambosos Jr. at times as well, which was very good. And obviously towards the latter end of the fight as well, he caught him with a nice check left hook, then obviously followed by a nice straight left right, which was in the 11th round as well, which was a good round for Haney. But personally, it was a very good performance from him. Straight, quite easy. I think for me, one thing that was a little bit disappointing was the dirty tactics that Kambosos Jr. kind of had to resort to because he was becoming frustrated throughout the fight. And this led into round 8, both guys receiving, you know what I mean, cuts, you know what I mean, to the head and the eyes, which wouldn't have happened if Kambosos Jr. wasn't using his head quite a lot during the close range tie-ups between both guys. And this obviously spurred on just a little bit of confidence in Kambosos Jr.'s performance from then. He had a fairly decent round in the 8th and part of the 9th round as well, because he saw a little bit of blood trickling from obviously Haney's face. But realistically, I think it was round 9 onwards. Obviously, Kambosos Jr. For himself suffered another cut. This one was a little bit more severe than the first one. Obviously, quite a lot of blood was, you know what I mean, from 9-10 onwards, was trickling down his face as well. But realistically, apart from the dirty tactics, you know what I mean, it was a straightforward professional performance by Haney. And he dealt with, you know what I mean, the the head clash and the blood trickling down his face really well. He just kept his composure and kept boxing and kept to his game plan, which him and his dad resorted to, really, which was brilliant. So, for another thing which I kind of put, like, you know what I mean, seen throughout the fight as well, was the information that the corner men were providing for their fighters. I personally thought that Haney's team, you know what I mean, were giving him good and, you know what I mean, precise information which helped Haney, you know what I mean, throughout the fight as well. Not that he needed it, but, you know what I mean, just that the information that he was given was spot on. Whereas Kambosos Jr.'s team, you know what I mean, some of the information that they were given in the early part of the rounds wasn't good, really, and something basic, you know what I mean, which took him a long time to kind of give him the information, was that as he was, you know what I mean, coming forward onto Haney, he kept switching his stances, which he was getting caught quite easy with the jabs and the right hands by Haney. And his corner didn't give him that information and tell him to stop until the 8th or 9th round, sorry, 7th or 8th round. And then from that onwards, you know what I mean, he had a little bit more success because he wasn't getting caught as often coming in. But as I said, you know what I mean, it was a very professional performance. It was a fairly decent fight, but it was, you know what I mean, a straightforward fight, really. And as I said in my pre-fight video, I expected, you know what I mean, I expected Haney to win quite convincingly, which he did on the scorecards. And it was, I mean, I did expect a unanimous decision. And I did say that Kambosos Jr. would have to kind of, not bum rush him, but come forward and, you know what I mean, try and stick it on him, try and be aggressive. And he did that. But it just wasn't good enough on the day. And overall, you know what I mean, I probably would have given, you know what I mean, Kambosos Jr. definitely 2 rounds, but there could be a case for maybe, you know what I mean, the 3rd round you could possibly give him as well. But for me, I gave him round 8 and round 9. But, you know what I mean, there's a little bit controversial. You could possibly say, yeah, he probably won round 12 as well, because Haney wasn't really doing much. But at that point, the fight was already, you know what I mean, sealed. You know what I mean? So there's no point for Haney to try and mix it with Kambosos Jr. and get caught and then, you know what I mean, lose his titles. But yeah, I think, you know what I mean, looking at it all, I probably would have scored it maybe 117 to 112 if you give Kambosos Jr. 3 rounds. But as I says, definitely I would have given him 2, but 3, controversial maybe. Now, the fight itself wasn't as exciting for me compared to the first fight. I thought the first fight was more exciting because obviously it was the first time we've seen these guys go at it. So I was more intrigued and I was thinking, okay, oh, what could happen here sort of thing. But after the first fight, I honestly said, you know what I mean, it's just going to be a repeat of the second fight was just going to be a repeat, in which it was. So I wasn't as excited in this fight, but you know what I mean, it was just good to kind of see how professional Haney remained, and obviously he goes on now to potentially bigger and better fights in the division. Maybe the Lomachenko fight, if that could get sealed. Who knows, maybe even the Garcia or Tank Davis fight. Still brilliant fights there, but I don't think he's got many fights left at 135. I think potentially maybe 1 or 2 fights and then he moves up to 140. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts of, you know what I mean, and your reactions to this fight. It was a good performance by Haney, but you know what I mean, how do you guys see it? Let me know in the comments below. As always, please subscribe, like and comment for more boxing related content. Bless.